You guys, I don't even know how to start this because honestly, the Brown family has just completely flipped the script, and it's all falling apart in the most unexpected way. We all knew things were tense, but no one saw this coming. Cody Brown, yes, that Cody Brown, the patriarch of the Brown family and the guy who swore by polygamy for years, did the unthinkable. He actually served divorce papers to Robin. Yes, Robin, his favorite wife, the one who, for years, had been the woman he claimed he could never live without. This shocking move has completely turned the family upside down, and the fallout is just heart-wrenching. But here's the twist. This isn't just about one broken marriage. Oh no, this is about the unraveling of everything they once stood for. The idea of polygamy, the belief system that the Browns tried to make work for so long, is crashing down in real time. And as this emotional journey unfolds, we watch as the family starts to disintegrate from within. Relationships, trust, and the very foundation of their belief system are being torn apart piece by piece. And it doesn't stop with Cody and Robin. The ripple effects of this decision go so much deeper than just one couple. Each wife has her own emotional battle to fight, each facing their own struggles, disappointments, and eventual self-reinvention. There's betrayal, heartbreak, and so much personal growth happening here that it's almost impossible to keep up. You won't believe what happens next, so trust me. Stick with me through this because what we're about to uncover will leave you rethinking everything you thought you knew about the Brown family. I don't think anyone was prepared for what happened next, but it hit hard when Cody Brown dropped the bombshell no one saw coming. After all the years of him painting Robin as the one in his life, the one who understood him, the one who finally made his polygamous dream feel like it was all worth it, Cody served her divorce papers. Yes, you heard that right. The man who had been a staunch defender of plural marriage, the man who tried to make it seem like his relationship with Robin was flawless, turned around and walked away. It was shocking, not just to Robin, but to the entire family, and honestly, to everyone who had been following the Brown family's journey all these years. Let's take a step back for a minute and think about this. When Cody and Robin first came together, it seemed like the perfect match. Cody, who had been struggling in his marriages, found someone who appeared to be everything he needed: loyal, loving, and ready to fit into his world of plural marriage. She was so good to him. Robin became the woman he could lean on, his favorite wife, the one he would confide in, and the one he openly called his soulmate. There were even moments when the rest of the wives seemed to accept this, especially as Robin played a role in keeping the peace and maintaining the family dynamic, or at least that's what they thought. But in a matter of moments, that illusion was shattered. Cody, after all the years of stability that Robin provided, chose to take a drastic step. And honestly, it was a blow that no one, least of all Robin, could have anticipated. Cody's sudden decision wasn't just a shock to her, it felt like a personal betrayal. Imagine this. For years, Robin thought she was Cody's number one. She had been through so much, sacrificing her own emotional needs for the sake of a family that was supposed to be her foundation. She was the one who took on the responsibility of blending into Cody's complicated family. But when it came time for her to be supported, when she needed that emotional security from her husband, Cody walked away. Robin's feelings of abandonment were palpable. The woman who had given everything to Cody, to this family, suddenly found herself alone, left to pick up the pieces of her shattered world. The sense of betrayal was suffocating. How could the man who promised her forever just walk away? What makes this even more intense is how this move didn't just impact Robin, it sent shock waves throughout the entire family. The rest of the wives, who had spent years witnessing Cody's shifting affections, had to wrestle with their own emotions and realizations. For Janelle, Christine, and even Mary, this was the culmination of years of feeling neglected and undervalued. Each of them had their own complicated relationship with Cody, but Robin's fall from grace hit them hard too. In a way, Cody's divorce decision was like the first crack in the dam. It wasn't just a breakdown of one marriage, it was the breakdown of everything they'd built together. The family was slowly unraveling, and it was clear that the dynamics that had once held them together were no longer strong enough to keep them whole. Robin's reaction, though, was the hardest to watch. The emotional weight of her abandonment, her sense of deep hurt and confusion, painted the picture of a woman who had been completely blindsided. It was painful to see her go through this alone. Even worse, it left the audience questioning everything we thought we knew about Kody's so-called ideal polygamous family. Was this really the life he had promised them all? Or was it a house of cards just waiting to collapse? You know, when Kody decided to divorce Robin, it wasn't just a shock to her. It rippled through the entire family, exposing the fractures that had been quietly growing under the surface for years. As much as this news sent shockwaves throughout the Brown household, it also raised some very uncomfortable questions about the relationships Kody had with his other wives. Mary, Janelle, and Christine, each woman had been dealing with their own private struggles for far too long, but this was the moment when everything came to a head. Let's talk about Mary for a second. Mary Brown, Kody's first wife, had been emotionally abandoned for years, but no one really understood just how deep that abandonment ran until Kody's sudden turn on Robin. Mary had been through a lot herself. Remember the infamous catfishing scandal that nearly tore her apart? The woman had already been through a public humiliation and heartbreak, all while trying to hold on to the idea of a family that, for her, seemed to be slipping away piece by piece. But the thing is, Mary wasn't just hurt by Kody's focus on Robin. She was crushed because, in her heart, she knew the truth. Kody had never fully been there for her, and the emotional neglect was something she could no longer ignore. Mary's bitterness toward Robin came to a boiling point during this time. You could see it in her eyes and hear it in her words. The devil is better than Robin. That single line cut through the air like a knife. It wasn't just a reflection of her frustration with Robin. It was a revelation of Mary's own emotional damage. Mary had been a part of this family, faithfully sticking it out for years. But when she finally realized that Kody's heart had long since belonged to Robin, her pain manifested in pure, raw bitterness. It was hard to watch, but also incredibly real. She wasn't just mad at Robin, she was angry at Kody for allowing things to get this far. Then there's Janelle. Oh, Janelle. She had always been the one who seemed the most practical and level-headed. If you've been following this family for long enough, you know that Janelle was the one who could see the bigger picture, but the emotional weight of the entire situation was starting to take its toll on her too. Janelle had been with Kody for years, raising children, holding down the fort, and keeping the peace. But the way Kody had increasingly favored Robin over time, this whole best wife dynamic, left Janelle feeling like a second-class citizen in her own home. She wasn't just his partner. She was the other one, the one who could never quite measure up. That emotional distance between her and Kody had grown unbearable. Janelle's frustration finally boiled over. In an emotional moment, she let out all the resentment that had been building inside her. She was done playing the supportive wife who had to silently watch Kody put Robin on a pedestal. "I'm not going to do this anymore," she said, walking away from the family structure that had defined her life. This wasn't just an outburst. It was the culmination of years of feeling unseen, unimportant, and, quite frankly, exhausted by Kody's actions. Janelle had reached her breaking point. The shift in her perspective was huge because it was a decision that went beyond just leaving Kody. It was about rejecting a lifestyle that had suffocated her for far too long. And then there's Christine. Poor Christine. It's almost impossible to talk about Christine without mentioning her heartbreaking journey of self-discovery. For years, she was the one who held the family together, the one who sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of everyone else. But Christine was the first to see that something wasn't working. She had grown increasingly dissatisfied with her marriage to Kody, and as the years went on, her emotional toll was impossible to ignore. When she finally walked away, it was a turning point in her life. And in the show itself. Christine had been carrying the weight of a broken marriage, and when she made the decision to leave Kody, it was as though she was shedding the last layer of a painful, stagnant life. But here's where it gets interesting. Christine's decision to walk away wasn't just a personal one. It was an emotional and spiritual awakening. She had always been the one to put the family first, but she was finally realizing that she had to put herself first. The contrast between the life she'd lived with Kody and the life she was beginning to build for herself was stark. You could see the relief in her face as she moved on from the relationship that had drained her for so long. She was no longer just Kody's wife. She was Christine, reclaiming. her happiness, and her future. Now think about this. The moment Kody and Robin's relationship started to crack, it wasn't just about their marriage, it was the unraveling of the whole family. It was as if all the women were finally able to break free of the toxic, controlling environment that had kept them trapped in a system that no longer worked. The fractures that were already there, hidden beneath the surface, had started to tear apart the foundation of their family. Kody's relationship with Robin had been the final straw. It was like the symbolic end of an era, the end of a family that had once seemed so strong, but was now crumbling under the weight of broken promises, unspoken resentments, and the emotional toll of polygamy. When you look at Janelle, Mary, and Christine, it's impossible not to see the parallel journeys they were all on. Each woman had their own struggles, their own quiet pain, but what they shared was a desire for something more. More than Kody, more than this life. And as we'll see, this wasn't just about emotional turmoil, it was about self-liberation. It was about breaking free from a family dynamic that had left them feeling powerless for too long. They were finally ready to step into their own lives, separate from Kody's control. By now, it was crystal clear. Kody's world had shifted, and with it, the entire structure of his family was on the verge of collapse. This wasn't just about one marriage failing. This was about the slow, painful unraveling of plural marriage itself. And let's be real, plural marriage, as we knew it in the Brown family, was dead. The moment Kody's relationship with Robin became the focal point of his life, the very foundation of their family dynamic began to disintegrate. Remember how this all started? The Browns were initially portrayed as this cohesive family, living out their version of polygamy with the belief that their love was built on a system of shared responsibility, faith, and unity. But as the years went by, cracks began to show. The emotional toll of trying to maintain multiple marriages, all while juggling the needs of each wife and their children, started to chip away at the facade of happiness. And as Kody began to spend more time with Robin, his favoritism became glaringly obvious. It wasn't just hard for the wives to watch, it was hard for everyone involved. They weren't just co-wives anymore. They were rivals for his attention, his time, his love. And for Kody, it seemed like Robin was the only one who truly mattered. As the emotional weight of this imbalance grew heavier, the cracks in plural marriage became impossible to ignore. When Christine walked away, it was as though a symbolic domino fell. Her departure was a punch to the gut, a reminder that the polygamous system they'd all agreed to wasn't sustainable. As Christine moved on to find a new life, it became even clearer that plural marriage was not only hurting her, it was hurting everyone. By the time Janelle left, it felt like the final nail in the coffin. She, too, was done with the lies and the broken promises. What started as a belief in plural marriage was now just a painful reminder of broken hearts and shattered expectations. The truth was undeniable. Plural marriage, in its original form, had reached its expiration date within the Brown family. And Kody, as the head of this family, was left to face the consequences of his actions and choices. At this point, the cracks in Kody's life weren't just visible, they were wide open. The decision to pursue a monogamous relationship with Robin had left him emotionally bankrupt, and the fallout was undeniable. It was a stunning shift for a man who once prided himself on his role as the patriarch of a plural family. Kody had built his identity around the idea of being in charge, of being the head of the household, and managing multiple relationships. But now, with his family collapsing around him, he was forced to face something he hadn't in years: himself. Kody's relationship with his children started to take a serious hit. And I'm not talking about the normal, we don't always get along tension. No, we're talking full-on emotional distance. With Christine and Janelle leaving, their children, his children, became distant as well. You could feel the rift growing between him and his kids. And that was especially true with his sons, who expressed their frustration at his behavior. They were no longer just dealing with an absentee father. They were dealing with a man who was so entrenched in his relationship with Robin that he had neglected the people who had always been there for him. And let's talk about the personal toll this took on Kody. It wasn't just the marriage breakdowns. It was the fact that he had spent so many years adhering to a belief system that was now crumbling under the weight of his own choices. You could see the internal conflict in his eyes. At the core, Kody was battling guilt, confusion, and a growing realization that the very system that defined his life was no longer working. The man who once wore the patriarch title with pride now seemed lost, unsure of what his future looked like without plural marriage. But here's the kicker. Despite all the chaos, Kody wasn't ready to completely give up. His choice to stay in a monogamous relationship with Robin signaled his desire for a fresh start, but it was also a denial. He wanted to move on, but the weight of the past and the family he had shattered would always hang over him. He was transforming, sure, but it wasn't in the way he thought it would be. The man who had once been at the center of a plural marriage system was now figuring out what it meant to just be Kody, and that journey would not be easy. Christine Brown's journey after her departure from Kody was nothing short of transformative. It was clear that her marriage had been emotionally draining for years, but her decision to leave was a bold declaration of self-worth. And honestly, when Christine walked away, she was walking into her future. But it wasn't just about escaping Kody. It was about reclaiming her life and rediscovering happiness that she hadn't experienced in a long time. For so many years, Christine had been the one who held the family together. She was the emotional glue, the one who tried to balance the needs of everyone around her, all while quietly suffering in a marriage that didn't fulfill her. We saw it in her eyes, her body language, the sadness, the longing. She wasn't just struggling with Kody's neglect, but also with the weight of a system that kept her from fully living. Plural marriage, for her, had turned into an emotional prison. But then, something incredible happened. Christine found herself. When she left Kody, it was like she shed a skin that had been suffocating her. Her relationship with David Woolley was the perfect symbol of this new chapter. It wasn't just that she found love again, she found peace. Watching her interact with David, the joy in her eyes, it was a stark contrast to the woman we saw trapped in the toxic cycles of polygamy. Christine's growth was inspiring, but it also highlighted how much she had sacrificed for a belief system that was now crumbling. She was no longer the woman defined by her role in Kody's life or by her relationship to plural marriage. She was Christine, and in that simple realization, she began to blossom. Her journey wasn't easy, and it wasn't without pain, but her story became a beacon of hope for many. It was proof that leaving behind what doesn't serve you, no matter how deeply rooted it is, can be the first step toward true freedom and emotional healing. Watching her find joy and independence was nothing short of heartwarming. Christine was no longer just surviving, she was truly living. The collapse of the Brown family wasn't just about the breakdown of relationships. It was about the rejection of an entire belief system that had shaped their lives for so long. What began as a groundbreaking exploration of polygamy slowly turned into a story of heartbreak, self-discovery, and empowerment. Each wife, Christine, Janelle, and Mary, faced their own journey of reinvention, finding strength in their independence despite the weight of years spent in a structure that failed them. Kody, once the patriarch, was forced to confront his role in the family's unraveling, ultimately rejecting plural marriage in favor of a monogamous life with Robin. This wasn't just a family falling apart, it was a shift in what it means to grow, to evolve, and to reclaim one's own sense of identity. The Brown family's journey is a reminder that change is inevitable, even in the most rigid of structures. What do you think? Was polygamy ever truly sustainable for the Browns? Or was this the inevitable outcome? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more insights into the world of sister wives.